my name is Kevin Siri.
And I'm Nick Norcross, and today we're introducing ClassRoots.
So now more than ever, having a college education is extremely important, and with rising costs of tuition, academic success is very important for students.
And here at the university, we have plenty of tools for students to use, but not all the resources are used as frequently or as effectively as they could be used. And today we're focusing on peers in the classroom.
So how many students are trying to overcome the same academic hurdles? Well, in the United States, there's over 20 million of us. Now, Nick and I realized that we both experienced this problem where we felt we could do better in the classroom if we had easier communication with our classmates. And we wanted to figure out who else out there was experiencing this. So we did some research, asked around, and we found that 36% of students have difficulty meeting their peers.
And also from our research, we found that 86% of students commute to campus across the country, which places a larger distance between the student and the classroom, which makes it harder to form communities within the classroom. And we think this is something that should be bridged.
And we know that students want to build these communities because 80% of the students that we talked to here at UMass Lowell and at Middlesex said they would utilize study groups more often if they were easier to organize. So we're thinking about the learning management systems market because that's where we want to participate. In 2018, it's worth $7.8 billion, which is a 25% jump over last year.
And stacking up against other competitors in the learning management system market, we found that companies like Blackboard do not solve the same problem. That is a stream of communication between the professor and the students, and sites like Facebook or Meetup.com are not consistent across the university, and students have to take the initiative to create the groups if they would like to collaborate in class.
So when thinking about problems and hurdles that students can face, there are three major ones. We have students that don't grasp the class material, students that don't know how to take effective notes, and the blue bar there, that's students who just feel overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have.
And we think these obstacles can be bridged with this app that we're developing, and it's called ClassRoots. These are screenshots of a prototype that we're working on right now, and it's basically a forum for students in the same classroom to ask questions and get answers.
So ClassRoots is engaging because it allows students to stay in the loop when it comes to homework or upcoming exams. It's helpful because they can reference other students' questions and answers, and they can get their own questions answered as well. And it's simple because we notify students when someone answers them or makes a post of their own.
What's unique about the platform that we're building is that it creates a group for every classroom in the university, so it really facilitates student usage by allowing the student to just search for their class, join the group, and get discussion rolling from there.
So with something like this, which is going to be a free-to-use app, we need to think about two phases. Phase one is that user acquisition, and phase two is approaching universities. So we've talked to leaders in the industry, and we've learned that data is very important in higher education. It's why universities put out surveys once a semester, but we feel that we can do better than that. With a mixture of usage analytics and polls that we're offering after each lecture, we can get a more comprehensive look at the student body and what they think about their classes. And so universities can access this for a yearly subscription fee.
And in order to bring ClassRoots to market, we're asking for a budget of $5,000. We're looking at a breakdown of $1,000 for further development. We're currently prototyping on Android, but we need to expand our development to iOS and when the app is ready to be ported. And also a budget of $1.5K for the Google Cloud platform in order to host a scalable backend that would be able to manage many students.
And for building the business, we need $2,500, $500 of which will be used to incorporate in the state of Massachusetts. $1,000 will be used to hire campus brand ambassadors, that's to get the word out to their classmates and friends. And $1,000 will be used later on for a further ad campaign, so for advertisements on social media. Thank you very much for your time. We hope you'll consider us to help make a difference here at UMass Lowell, hopefully beyond.
We'd like to launch it here first.
ClassRoots. Now the judges are going to have a chance to ask you questions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's very good, guys? Very good job, guys. The presentation had a lot of polish. What's your pricing model? Like you said, you want to sell to the schools. How much?
So that's something we need to work out because when it comes to users, it's based on server requests, and so the cost varies wildly depending on the amount of users, active users that you have. But the reason we chose a subscription model is because learning management systems have seen a lot of success like that, Canvas, Blackboard. And so we need to work out the actual numbers.
Okay.
I think it would be a reasonable target to aim for something in the ballpark of like $5,000 per semester for usage, depending on obviously like what Kevin said, the amount of users that we can generate data from.
Have you tested the concept, the like college concept with any students yet?
Not yet, but we're
We
going
do
to work on
have a prototype I can show you guys, but it's not fully fleshed out yet, but it's essentially what you saw on the screen.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't.
Okay.
We can check it out later.
Okay, sure.
But we're planning on running kind of a beta test over the summer.
But would you, how do you persuade students to use this? Do you go to the professor first and say, use this for your class, or do you go to the university first and say, get the College of Social Sciences? Like, what's your in? If you're selling, who do you sell to?
Well, first, in the fall, we would like to hire campus brand ambassadors, and there's another app that I'm familiar with. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. It's called Pocket Points, and it's basically an app that it's for students, and it helps them not use their phone in class. But I know someone that was a brand ambassador for Pocket Points, and he essentially went from classroom to classroom, made a presentation before the classes, and spread the word like that. So we would
Got them upwards of about 1,000 users over.
more than a couple thousand.
So is your
Actually.
answer, so I asked a specific question, so is your answer to my question, you go to students?
That's where we'll begin, because they're part of what we're offering to the school as the school's product. But like you said, yeah, we're going to department heads once we're ready for that point, because they're the ones who really have the budget and the decision-making power. It wouldn't make sense to like go directly to the top and go for a whole school adoption at once.
So you go to a physics class and there's 30 people sitting in a room, and you want to get dialogue between all those people in the room so that, you know, I can ask someone else, did they do the homework or they have a problem with a particular, right? So you want to have that, and you want to put that on an app, right? So what would stop the professor from day one going, hey, everyone, I need everyone's whatever, email contact or whatever, so we can share it across the class so I can send emails to everybody? What's to stop the professor from doing that? Saying if you want to ask Kevin a question, go send Kevin an email. Here's his email address.
So that's something we've talked to professors about, and you end up with these like long convoluted email chains. We've talked to a professor who still ends up in email conversations like 2 years after these students have left the class. But the goal isn't to use the class in the class or the app in the classroom. It's to have the classroom extend beyond to the dorms, to the person's apartment, so they can easily reach out and kind of get a crowdsourced information flow by just talking to the rest of the class at once.
So you had mentioned that it would be, so within the university at some point, every class, because that would be the thing, every class is automatically in this.
Yes.
So how, and I think this is going to both your points, how would you get to that point? Because it's not going to be the students that would initiate that.
Right,
It would be an individual professor.
I found a PDF that lists the UMass Lowell catalog, and I used Python to scrape the PDF, and it generates a list of all the names of the classes so that they could be then entered in the database and then searched.
But, so, you haven't, I don't think you've answered
Yeah.
Susan's question, so think about what the question was, right?
Right, who would make that happen for you? Where would you go to be able to have the students access that app? Like, who would give you that permission to have all of the classes in there?
It's publicly available, so it would just be facilitated by ourselves developing it.
But the university would, you're hoping at some point would subscribe to this,
Yes.
correct? So we would need them to come on board at some
Yes.
point, otherwise.
Yeah, if there was a partnership with the university, then I'm sure we wouldn't have to scrape a PDF, but rather get a list from the university itself.
Or just full integration with the student information system, which is another model that's very popular for LMSs.
So I have a comment and a question. So my comment is, we've each asked questions about like how do you get into like kind of the classroom, and you've answered them with like a technical response when I think we're wondering like, do you persuade a professor or do you persuade like Dean Falcone to say like, I'm going to get 10 professors to use this in their courses, because then you would be able to look to see how the grades compare to people that didn't use the app, or like,
Yeah,
they have to talk to a human too.
Mhm. Yeah, we're absolutely on board with like making connections with professors that would want to implement this as well. We're not entirely focused on just starting it from the ground up with the students.
So, and I have one like kind of tactical question. I thought it was great that you cited the sample information. Like, just like, what was the swag? Like, did you sample 10 people? I'm assuming it wasn't statistically significant. Like, just
We sampled 100 people here at UMass Lowell and Middlesex Community College.
so anytime you share a sample, you should like just throw out like approximate, or it wasn't statistically significant, but it's directional. Like, you should disarm us, because if you were
Okay.
speaking with a banker or a VC, then they hit you with a chair.
Okay, thank you.
But have you guys looked at any competition, like there's some, platforms like, you guys familiar with Slack?
Yes.
So if I look at like your screens and like what you're trying to do, you're trying to create this threaded conversation, it feels a lot like Slack.
So what Slack wants to do is very much enterprise related, and they're not really going after students, and I think we're probably in the minority knowing what Slack is. And also the integration works a bit differently, because students will have like a list of their classes, and if I have this correctly, Slack is more of like a text message conversation where it's a message and a received response. But forums work a little bit differently, because you can comment on someone's comment, or you can comment on the initial comment. So the conversation can kind of take forks off in different directions and stuff like that.
Okay.
And also, it's about creating like the ecosystem within the university. The fact that it just has every classroom in the university allows for it to just be kind of like specifically purposed for discussion in each classroom.
The other thing too is, I know you're building parallel applications, but there's also platforms now that allow you to build one app, then deploy it on both platforms. So you're coding once and then kind of deploying it in a shell. And from a cost perspective, it's something you may want to look at.
Absolutely, yeah. I've done a little bit of research, but I've mainly been using Android Studio. But let me know.
How would you know if someone's actually a student in the class? And does that make a difference?
Well, right now we have an authentication login, so it requires an email verification, and one thing that we would like to implement is just checking that the tail of the email is a .edu, and
But I can give you a .edu for anything. I can make up an email address tomorrow.
that's true. But if we could make it so you select the university and make sure that the tail end of the university, the tail end of the email matches that, so that like you can't like forge a UMass Lowell email, for example.
Well, what naming server are you running it against to check that it's not a fake address?
Well, you have to log into your email and
So you have to
confirm it from there.
So we have about 1 minute of questioning left.
guys think about talking to the other people in the classroom. So like, if you're in a classroom with 30 people, maybe walking over to someone and saying, hey, you want to study on something, or I have a question, can I ask you?
Yeah, that's a totally realistic thing to do. We just find that many times, like students, like they go to class and then they're like itching to get out at the end. So we just think that like students will have questions like generated like really probably when they're doing their homework and projects and whatnot, and not necessarily when they're leaving class. Like everyone leaves class and then goes on with their day.
Did you have a follow-up?
No.
When will your prototype be ready to try?
Well,
Just
we
when?
think that we could definitely develop it by the end of the summer. We would like to launch it in like smaller groups for the fall, and then with some funding, we could absolutely expedite that.
Is there a way to try to persuade you to like pick your 2 favorite classes. Say you're like, I love physics or calculus, and I have a really good relationship with my teacher. To go to her or him and say, can we try this? Because then you imagine like you come back next year and say, and we've tried it with 6 classes, and here's what's happening.
yeah.
You know, the retention rate's 70%. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, we'll line up and write your checks here.
Yeah, we've been thinking, we have a friend who he runs a summer camp for high school students, and they, it's a tech accelerator, so he helps them start startups. And we were thinking about launching like a focus group within his summer camp in order to test it.
What about at UMass Lowell? Like,
I've had conversations with some of my professors at Middlesex, and they've shown a willingness to help run kind of a beta test.
I think that'd be exciting.
Thank you, ClassRoots.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
much.
Good job. Good job.